Turns out, in their 30s, baby boomers and millennials had a lot more in common than we think. And no, ladies, I'm not talking about high-rise jeans. The struggles boomers faced buying their first house in Los Angeles in the early 80s are very similar to what millennials are facing now in the early 2020s. But let's start at the beginning. Act 1. The buildup. Now, leading up to now and mostly during the pandemic, prices in Los Angeles were skyrocketing, with single-family house prices in some parts of LA going up by over 15% per year. Now, leading up to the early 80s, boomers also experienced the same thing. In the 1970s, prices were skyrocketing, similar to what millennials saw during the past few years. I mean, people were just buying anything that had a window, a door, and a toilet. And an article from the New York Times in 1984 read, "It was not just a boom, it was a super boom, with miserable bungalows in Santa Monica running up from $40,000 in 1974 to $400,000 by 1980. Now, in both cases, the buildup also included a bunch of inflation. I mean, millennials, through self-entitlement and lots of job hopping, managed to push inflation to a monthly national of 7.5. Boomers, on the other hand, through their hard work and pure grit, managed to hit a rate of almost 15. And again, in both cases, the government responded in the same way. We got to raise interest rates. Then millennials went from having mortgage rates from 3 and 4% to 7%. Boomers, on the other hand, being the gangsters that they are, went from 8 and 9% to a high of around 20%, which historically speaking is, kind of just insanity. I mean, in 50 years, interest rates have never been that high. Also, never in 50 years, actually in the history of 30-year mortgages, had interest rates been as low as 3%. And actually, the 7% interest rate that we're currently complaining about has been the average in the past 50 years. But then again, that miserable $400,000 bungalow in Santa Monica is now worth $2.5 million. So yes, prices have also never been like they are now. But anyway, so yes, rising prices, high inflation, high interest rates. Then what happened? And by the way, my name is Daniel Rangel, real estate agent in Los Angeles. If I can be of any help, it would be an honor. And for a free consultation on buying or selling, you can find my information in the description below. And if you like this video, it would mean a lot if you hit like or subscribe. But well, that brings us to Act 2, the real estate conflict. Now, around 1981, the 20% interest rates slammed the brakes on the real estate market, and sales dropped nationally by almost 50%, and realtors downgraded their BMW to Ford Pinto. Now, today, similar to the 1980s, on the west side of Los Angeles, sales have also dropped by around 40%, and realtors have downgraded their Teslas to Toyota Priuses. Then boomers saw prices go down by around 5 to 10%. Today, as of this recording, single-family home prices on the west side of Los Angeles have also fallen from their peak by about 5 to 10%. But have recently been stabilizing, and in some parts have actually been going up. So the big question is why? I mean, why are property values crashing if sales are down by a whole bunch and interest rates have almost doubled? I mean, it kind of sounds like basic economics that prices should go down. Well, it turns out, again, partly for the same reasons, home prices didn't really fall to any significant extent during the early 1980s. Shortage of inventory. I mean, here's the city of LA in 1980 addressing the housing shortage.
Housing units are probably going to have to be smaller. 2,500 square foot house on a half acre of land with 2 large automobiles sitting in the garage is no longer a realistic American dream at the cost of everything and the problems of inflation with respect to the use of land, so that we can have a higher density in order to alleviate this housing shortage. And
And fast forward to today, and well, not a whole lot has changed. According to a 2022 report by Up for Growth, Los Angeles is the metro area with the biggest housing shortage in the country. The thing is, Los Angeles has had a long history of not being able to build enough housing due to zoning restrictions and, well, just a bunch of other reasons. I mean, in 2017, an article by the Wall Street Journal ranked Los Angeles as one of the toughest cities to build housing in the country. Now, another thing keeping inventory low, similar to the 1980s, homeowners with low interest rates don't want to sell and lose their low interest rate. But in summary, yes, similar to the 1980s, interest rates are up, sales have jumped off a cliff, but prices are not really going down, and one reason, among others, is a shortage of inventory. So then what happened? Well, this is where the story ends for millennials, as I have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but we do know what happened to the boomers, which brings us to Act 3, what happened to the boomers. Within about 2 years, interest rates began to fall by almost half, people refinanced, and home prices began to skyrocket. Towards the end of the 1980s, prices in Los Angeles were going up by more than 20% per year. So now the big question is like, Daniel, so what are you trying to say? That the same thing is now going to happen to millennials, that interest rates are going to fall and prices are going to skyrocket? Absolutely 100% not. One, this is just an interesting comparison of similarities that may or may not have similar outcomes. Two, just because your last relationships lasted 5 months doesn't mean your next one won't last 5 days. Look, the point is, the patterns of history can easily be broken. And three, to confuse you even more about the future, part of what happened in the early 1980s is known as the savings and loan crisis. And some say that the government just put a band-aid on the situation in the early 1980s. They created massive deregulation of banks, which basically means they let them do whatever they wanted, and naturally, well, that's exactly what they did. And then that caused prices in some parts of Los Angeles to soar by about 120% during the 1980s. But then, in the early 1990s, that band-aid eventually burst, causing the savings and loan crisis Part 2, which led to home prices in Los Angeles dropping by over 20%. So yes, the happy ending that we saw for boomers earlier is now gone, and if the story continues, we'll keep finding good and bad endings. So the moral of this story is, the only thing guaranteed in real estate is prices will go up and they will go down, but no one knows when. But if you hold long enough, historically speaking, they will go up. So that said, the best time to buy is not when you think prices are going to go up. The best time to buy is 1, when you can reasonably and financially afford to buy, and 2, when you can hold on to the property for a minimum 5 years, ideally 10 years, and super ideally, well, until you die. But if you're still not sure if you should buy a house now, check out my other video, 3 people who should not buy a house in Los Angeles, which I'll link at the end of this video. And by the way, my name is Daniel Rangel, real estate agent in Los Angeles. If I can be of any help, it would be an honor. And for a free consultation on buying or selling, you can find my information in the description below. And if you like this video, it would mean a lot if you hit like or subscribe. But either way, thanks a bunch for watching and have an awesome day.